Bonjour Tristesse is the new movie by Durga Chew-Bose. She is a published author and has written for a bunch of outlets you may have heard of. This is based off the 1954 coming-of-age novel by Françoise Sagan, which I've recently read, so I guess I'll just kind of give my quick take on it. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Françoise was only 18 when this novel was published, so the writing itself, it does come off as like a little jumbled, but it's very in the moment, especially like I just read that book, Good Girl by Aria Aber, awesome book. But when I was reading something like Bonjour Tristesse, it really did feel like I was reading from somebody who was living out these moments as they were happening them. The story has already been adapted into a movie, I believe in the 50s, that I've unfortunately not seen, but I was very interested in seeing this new movie, especially with the contemporary cast that we get here. Obviously, we have Chloe Sevigny in this movie, and Lily McInery, who was in the movie Palm Trees and Power Lines and really blew me away. With Bonjour Tristesse, we get yet another vehicle with her, as this is the coming-of-age story following Cecile, a teenager who is living at her summer home with her widowed father, and everything changes when her father's old friend Anne comes to visit, who is played by Chloe Sevigny. Cecile's father has this casual relationship with the free-spirited Elsa, and Cecile has this relationship with an older man named Cyril. But when Anna comes into the fray, all of these relationships are now challenged by her presence. And like I said, as a novella, it was pretty interesting. When I was researching it, I noticed that it was very controversial when it came out. In America, over 100 lines were censored. So if you do decide to read the story, I recommend reading this version I'm gonna put on the screen. It's very much a translation of the original text. And like I said, there's something about it that feels very authentic and lived in. There's a naivety to this main character that is portrayed really well in this book. And there's lots of sensory and moments of young brilliance that is scattered all throughout this book. But, you know, it does feel aged, and not just because of its content, but just the way the plot develops on this book and what happens. So, did I like this movie? I thought it was all right. I think there's a lot that I enjoyed, but maybe just as much I did not enjoy. I kind of sit on the fence with it. This movie is a modern retelling of the story, which is definitely interesting. And what I'll say for sure is that this movie is gorgeous to look at. This movie has such a vibrancy to it, and it helps illuminate everybody on screen. There's lots of unique shot composition and interesting ideas on important story elements playing out. The beginning of this movie really immerses you into the setting. It's just this beachy aroma and this grandiose setting. It reminded me of Destiny Island from Kingdom Hearts. And we get introduced to Cecile and Cyril, who are embracing each other under the sun. It is such an attractive way to start this movie. Unfortunately, while this director cited wanting to have a more timeless approach, I don't quite buy the story in the modern day. This movie tries often to show like a text message or even a montage of Cecile undoing headphone wires, but it still doesn't help that like a lot of the actions that these characters make would just make more sense in the 1950s. Like as it stands, what we have here is a pretty thin retelling of this story. And yeah, you can make the comparisons to like James Ivory, Luca Guadagnino, Eric Romer, with its extended shots of characters like cutting fruit and being dressed so well and having these like semi-intellectual conversations. Kind of reminded me of like a latter day Woody movie, though I wish I was watching like a latter day Woody movie because that would be more sharp than a lot of what we get here. There's interesting choices like important dialogues shown over like a voiceover, and the music is beautiful. It has that solo piano like Sakamoto or Joe Hiachi. There's also these slow dissolve transitions that happen on this movie. Absolutely has an aura to it. But then we get all of these scenes with Cecile and her iPhone, and of course they don't do anything interesting with that. And as perverse as the source material was, the movie is a little prudish. Although I will say, the tender moments that are displayed here are very well done. And then we have the casting, which I was really excited to see Lily McInery in another lead role. And I mostly enjoyed watching her here. She has a very distinct look to her. She's very timeless and she often feels very believable in her actions. But then there's also like points in this movie, like when there's like a big reveal that happens, that really like I just was not connected to anything going on. I don't really blame this so much on the cast as I do kind of just like the weak material that they were given. And the same goes for Chloe Sevigny. Like I saw online some people calling her miscast in this movie, but I don't quite think that. I do think it is kind of a weird role for her. It's something so restrained that it almost comes off as like a gimmick to this movie, but she's still a good presence, even though I just don't really know if she was the right actor to kind of sell this role of Anna to me. So I am kind of a mixed bag with this one. I do think it is beautiful to look at, and you know, there's a lot from it that has kind of stayed in my memory, like on the bike ride home and everything. And in some ways, it is a little more pleasurable than reading through the source material, though it is nowhere near as bold. I wonder if this wasn't called Bonjour Tristesse and it was just very influenced by that novel, if I would have liked this more, because, you know, when I look at the cover of Bonjour Tristesse, the blurb says that it is immoral, funny, and very French. And I will say, when it comes to this movie, it is none of those things, unfortunately. So I would give this a 6.7. Bonjour Tristesse will be coming soon by Greenwich, I believe, later this year. Thank you for watching.